My apologies if you couldn't hear me just now. I was talking, but I had some incorrect settings apparently, so you missed all of my introduction and all of what I'm doing today. So I'll have to kind of start explaining again. Today we're going to be working on some glass effects, and basically we're going to animate glass. So that was the summary version of what I would have said earlier. I said quite a bit and didn't realize that y'all weren't hearing me. And also just a heads up that music is taken from Creators Live Free on YouTube. They produce free music and sound effects for content creators like myself, so you can go and check them out. Just make sure that you follow their rules that are listed on their YouTube page. Alright, so yeah, let's get back to creating some glass. So first thing we're going to do is set some defaults. We're going to set the padding and margins to 0. And we're going to set box sizing to border box. Also, we're going to set the body to have a nice color. But in this case, let's go with a background image instead. I'm going to go with 35, 45, 135, and oops. Right, I didn't need that extra thing there, that was accidental. RGB 135, 35, and 235. Let's see how this looks. It is not reloading over here, so did I miss anything? Alright. Background size. Cover. Let's put the height to 100 view height. Width to 100 view width. There we go. Right, that's what I was missing. I hope I didn't accidentally click that that article just now, because I do not wish to open that window. Y'all won't see it because I've changed a couple things, but I definitely will. Alright, so one last thing. Let's set the color on the body to white. And let's give it a nice font size. About, well, that's kind of big, so 1.35 em. Good. Alright, and let us add some content that we can play with. So I'm going to add a section, and we're going to add a couple divs to this. And let's put some content inside of them. Glass 0 and glass 1. Now the reason I gave them two different classes, we are going to have different styles. Okay, so let me also give this a nice font. Font family, sans serif, and let's pull Open Sans. I believe my system has Open Sans installed. Yeah, there it goes. Nice. And font weight, put that to 200. Alright, good. That looks nice. So let's go ahead and start playing with some glass. So for the section, we're going to set this to display flex. We're going to set its height and width to take up the entire window. So width 100%, or better at 100 view width, and height 100 view height. Align item center, justify content center as well. Gap of about 5 view width. Good. And let's also set the divs to use something similar. Before you panic, I'm going to actually move some of this stuff out. So we're going to put the height and width down here, as well as the gap. And for the divs, we are going to put their width to 50%. Add a border. Now, when we're doing glass, we don't need a border, but I'm going to use one this time around because it gives a nice effect. But you technically don't need a border to do glass, just shadows is enough. Okay, so there we are. Oh, another thing, let me add padding to our section. So padding of about 5 view height and 5 view width. Good. Could probably do the same for the glass, so I'll just move this up here. Let's add a box shadow. 0, 0, 8px. That'll be how far it spreads. And then we're going to use black at about 0.2 opacity. Alright, so there's our glass. Alright, so I'm going to adjust these two different styles of glass shortly and show you two different ways that we can achieve it. I think for the first one I'm going to use the usual thing that everyone does, which is the backdrop filter. Everyone is using that these days, but I've written an article on dev. You can check out my dev page, dev.to/RolandXor. You'll find an article I wrote as to why you should avoid using backdrop filter blur too often, or at least hold out on it for a little while. Because as cool as it is, it's not supported by Firefox in any form. So I tend to avoid it. I have used it recently in at least one template that I created, but it technically isn't really the most accessible feature yet. And I use accessible in this sense to refer to you know, whether or not others will be able to have it or see it, because some people use Firefox for various reasons, they won't see it. And it can make your designs look kind of messy. So I have other solutions that you can use instead. They don't give you exact results, unfortunately, because there is technically no blurring, but it's not the worst. Okay? Alright, I'm going to add some color to this gradient so we can actually see the blurring occurring. So let me add something like maybe a red and I don't know, something else. We'll figure this out. RGB. In fact, let me just put red here. And okay, that red is really sharp, so I'm gonna turn that down. 135, 35, and 95 should do the trick. No, 85, 95. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Something like that. And then I'm gonna add another color here. I don't know, what should I use? Something dark maybe? So 35, 35, 35, let's use that. Okay, it's not far up enough, but at least we can still see something a little better there. Probably better if I use an image for this because it will give you enough that we can actually see the blurring going on there. But I'll get around to that, so don't panic. Glass 1 is going to use a different style altogether, so I'm going to put a background color on this. RGBA 255, 255, 255.35. Okay, that's a bit high, so let's turn that down. Good, that's well, good there. 035 is good. You know what, I'm going to go right ahead and add an actual image to this because otherwise it's going to be kind of hard to see the blurring that's occurring here. Now you won't see this because I'm actually broadcasting Visual Studio Code itself, so just a second, let me grab that background image for you. Alright, so I've got the background image here prepared. I'm going to drop it in that folder and it should appear as soon as I save it. Alright, so you should see a folder be created, I believe. Yeah, there it is. There's image, and we're gonna call this backdrop.png, and it should appear right now. Okay, this is kind of like one of those magic tricks where you see the magician say, right now, and nothing happens. Yeah, it is there though. Okay, there it is, yeah. I knew it was there, but Visual Studio Code didn't reload the window as I thought it would, so that's why you didn't see it. Alright, so let's replace this with that PNG I just saved. So we're going to use URL, img. Right, wait, let me take that out and put this img backdrop.png. do that correctly. Oops, I forgot to close the declaration. There it is. Only one problem, because this is over here, no, you can't see the blurring over there. Okay, I can still pull that back up, though I have the image viewer open, so I can just quickly grab another image, and hopefully it should have enough chaos going on in it to allow us to see the blurring, which is the whole point of this exercise at this point. I just so happen to have images to hand just about all the time because I'm always working on something, so I'm always saving new photographs and stuff. Actually, what I will do, if I can't find one quickly, I'll probably just pull up one from my resources folder, something I downloaded or something. Alright, found one, so this should be good. It's a nice flower. Let me save this as our new backdrop image. It's kind of huge because I didn't resize it. Alright, there it is. So now you can see the blurring happening right here. I'm gonna need to turn that down quite a bit because it's a lot. So let me turn that down to like 3. Okay, maybe not 3. 5 is good. Yeah. Alright, so now we have 2 styles of glass here, and I can turn this one up as I would have wanted to before. And then make it darker as well, because I kinda like a slightly darker glass. Alright, so this is the basic way to do it. Actually, let me add another div and add another kind of glass to our project. This one will actually use pseudo elements, which is what I've been doing recently. Oops, I did not mean to open Firefox. I accidentally clicked on something and opened it. Alright, glass 2. Yeah, I was saying, I've been using pseudo elements recently to achieve a style of glass that is relatively similar to backdrop filter blur, but it's not quite the same. In that it doesn't actually blur, but it can give you the impression of blurring. Alright, so always use a set position if you want to use your pseudo element to do this. It could be absolute, it could be fixed, it could be anything, but you have to set position, if not it's not going to work. Alright, so position absolute on this one. And we're going to use the relatively new property inset to make things a lot easier. Instead of having to go top, bottom, left, right, etc. Just use inset to set everything to 15px. And then I'm going to add some content. There isn't actually any content, but this is necessary. If not, pseudo elements do not work. Alright, and then we're going to add a background color. Alright, so now you can see that pseudo element there. And now for the fun part, which is to filter it. So filter, blur, let's go with like 35 pixels. Alright, you can't actually see it at 35 pixels, so I'll turn up the opacity on it. Still can't see it. Probably blurred a bit too much. Oh, see what I did wrong here? I forgot to close that again. Alright, so now it works. Good. I always need to make sure that I check for that, because when I'm working in Atom, I do the same thing sometimes. It's supposed to auto-close, I think, but sometimes when I type in fast, that doesn't happen, so yeah. Alright. I think I want to adjust this image slightly. I'm going to allow you all to actually see what I'm doing, so you get a free graphics course, you can see it. Alright, just a second, let me switch windows around. Alright, so here we are in Painted. This is the image that I chose. So what I'm going to do now is edit this a bit. Before I blur it, let me resize it, because this is a pretty huge image. I'm going to make it 1920 by 1440. Then we're going to use Gaussian Blur to blur this image. Let's turn it up quite a bit. I want something that looks kind of abstract, but we're still using the color information from this photo to give us some naturalness, you can say, if you want to coin a term, to our randomness. Alright, and the next thing I'm going to do is add a gradient on top in a new layer. And use this to give us some nice effects. Okay, not color dodge, obviously. I think I'm gonna undo that blurring I did, turn it down a bit, and then do that same layer thing again. So let's undo that, because it was blurred a little too much. I still want to actually have something relatively recognizable. I changed my mind on the fly a lot. That's a little habit I have. My apologies to anyone who gets confused. It's just me. Let's go with difference and turn it down. Alright, let's leave it there and add a new layer. Oops, meant to fill it, not do a gradient. Alright, I'm going to fill this with black and then select a huge chunk of it and delete. Deselect all, effects, blur. Now you may be wondering, what does all of this have to do with glass? Well, one of the tricks of the trade is that glass needs a good background to sit on, so you can't just grab glass and drop it on your website and it automatically looks good. Of course, this is not me trying to do a professional example right now. I'm just basically giving us something fun to work with, if you will, but if you check my templates, you'll see it takes some time to go through and find the right fit to actually bring out the effect that you're going for. I think luminosity may actually do the trick this time. Good. Alright, and let me add one more as overlay. Good, I'll leave it there before I start obsessing over this background image. So back to Visual Studio Code. And let's see how this looks. Alright, good. Looking good. So now we can work with this. Now, glass 0 is not going to be all that obvious without a background color, as you can see. So I'm going to add one to that. But I'm gonna make it dark instead of a lighter color. Right, maybe an even darker color than that. Oops, I just pasted a command by accident. Alright, so good. That looks relatively okay. I think we can also make this one dark, seeing as its parent is light. Okay, maybe not that dark. I am choosing the wrong colors today. I forgot one important detail. This has to go behind the parent, so use the index -1 to do that. Right, there we go. So now we have 3 styles of glass, and as I mentioned, we're going to be animating them. So I'm going to add... We're actually not going to... Then again, yeah, I'm going to use animations. I was not going to use them, I was going to use transitions and maybe just hover. But we can have this run automatically and use animations instead. So let me add a keyframe here. We're going to call this one... Oh, wait, my music just stopped. Yeah, I forgot Chrome puts my tabs to sleep because I have an add-on for that, so my apologies. Alright, so let's see, what keyframe shall we use here? This will be glass 0. I forgot this playlist is with voice effect. Alright, so let me switch playlists a second here, folks. We will be back to coding in a second. Alright, so right, back to the coding. 0%, we're gonna have this as... Let me see, we're using backdrop filter blur, so we're gonna put backdrop filter. In fact, instead of changing that, what I will do, let me add a variable. Make life a lot easier. So root glass 0, and this will be at first at 8px, and in our animation at 0, it will start at the same. In fact, we don't even need to put a start point there anymore, so let's just put this to 50 then and change the variable from there. So glass 0, could put that to maybe like 18px, and at 100% we'll set it to 3px. And then we will change the value from in here. And let's add animation. Glass 0. 1, well, no, not 1 second, 5 seconds. Linear. Infinite and both. And you should see this shifting slowly. Of course, the one problem with backdrop filter blur and with filtering in general is that when you animate it, it's not as clean as you might want. And that's one of the reasons why I don't use it as much in my stuff, because you can't really animate it as smoothly as you might want to. But there is another method, and I'm going to add another box like this here with backdrop filter blur and show you how you can still use it and still animate it, but smoothly. Alright, so we're going to get back to that. But it's similar to what we're doing over here with glass 2. It's just that we're not going to be using the parent just like over here we use a pseudo element. We're not going to use the parent element to do the blurring. We're going to use the pseudo element and animate that instead. Alright, so for number 2, we just use the background color on that. And obviously that one is pretty easy to animate because, I mean, background color, yeah, you can change that pretty easily. So let's add another variable here, glass 1. Let's copy the background color from glass 1. In fact, cut and paste that to right here. Replacing this value inside of here with that variable, glass 1. Then we just come here and we can play around with these values as much as we want. Duplicate this, bring it down here, and change that to glass 1. Alright, this is not moving smoothly either, so I need to see if I missed anything here. Alright, let me go back through in my head. I have the animation name, the timing function, how many times to play, because this should be moving smoothly. Am I missing anything? Let me go with... I don't think forwards and backwards should change anything. No. I don't think I missed anything, so... Not sure why this is acting so jumpy, but this should be smooth. So that's slightly annoying. Alright, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cheat, seeing as I'm clearly forgetting something. I am going to cheat and I'm going to look at my own code from another project and see if I missed anything. Where is it? Templates, right. That's what I'm looking for. I did this just yesterday and it worked. No, I didn't miss anything, so clearly there's something else wrong here. That should be moving smoothly, but it is not. Alright, tell you what, I'm gonna, instead of using keyframes for this one, I'm going to use transitions. See if it actually does the same thing this time. Okay, so clearly it is doing the same thing. Oh, I forgot to add transition on this one. So transition all 1 second ease in out. Okay, it works with the transition. So clearly it's just something up with the animations that is causing that issue there. But it should have been smooth if I remember correctly. I mean, I have to go back and double check see if I missed anything there, but we got a smooth animation on this one. So what I will actually do is use transitions from here on with our animations, just because this should be smooth and it wasn't, and I'm not exactly sure why. And just to avoid any issues, we're going to make sure we keep it smooth. So for glass 0, we're going to add a hover state. And we're going to change the value of glass 0 when hovered. Just make sure we have that as a, okay, right, it's a different value. And let's move this transition up to div so that it covers everyone at the same time. Now as you can see, the backdrop filter blur is still not smooth because that particular function does not animate very smoothly, unfortunately. I wish it did, but it doesn't, because it's a pretty, I guess it's a pretty intense function. It's actually an SVG filter, and it doesn't work as smoothly as you might want. Some of the other filters do work smoothly, like grayscale, contrast, brightness, etc. But blurring, I find, does not animate very well. So if you want animated blurring, you'll have to find another solution, which, as I said, I will demonstrate before the stream is out. So yeah, what I will do here though is adjust the color, the background color, so you can actually see that shift occurring a little better. And let me turn this up, or maybe more like turn it down. It's actually easier to see a shift with the background color changing, but it's not as easy to see the blurring being jumpy when you change the background color. So I guess in that way you could mitigate some of your issues with animating glass by doing that. Alright, so for the last one, what we are going to do is we're going to change the inset on this one, and also the background color, well, background filter. So I'm going to turn down the filtering on this one to something like 18px. Need add hover to that. And copy the transition. And I'm going to slow down this one so you can see it a little better. Also, I'm going to change the background color so it is easier to see when it is hovered. And right, as I said, we're going to change the inset. Alright, so let's see what happens now when I hover this. See, you can actually see that one changing quite a bit. Let me turn on the blurring even more so it's even easier to see. Right, so this shows you how you can have some really cool glass effects with this method, which is the one that I prefer to use and the one I wrote about on my dev article. It's really cool, and it gives you some greater options than just using backdrop filter blur or changing the background color, which are all valid. And by the way, as I have done in my latest template, you can actually combine all three. So you can change the background color, backdrop filter, and actually use pseudo elements, and you can add all kinds of layers of complication, which is what I've done. And when you see the effects, you will see it is really cool. Alright. Now, as I told you, you can also animate backdrop filter blur without actually changing the backdrop filter value, similar to what I did over here. And as I said, that would be using a pseudo element. So we're going to add another div to this, and to avoid everything bunching up, what I'm going to do is add flex flow to this. So flex flow row wrap, and I'm going to turn down the width on these divs to like 47.5, right? Maybe not that. Right, there we go. 43.5 should do the trick. Let's turn up the height as well, so they're given some more space. Okay, maybe not 65%. Let's go with, oops, I meant to type view height. Okay, that's still a lot. Right, 35 should do the trick. And what is the last thing? Oh yes, I wanted to add, oh wait, I already have justify content center. I didn't realize I did. So maybe I need to turn on the gap that I have on this, because they are spaced quite a bit. Right. Alright, let's make this one glass 3 now instead of glass 2. And we're going to copy everything from glass 2 to glass 3. Oh wait, I didn't actually add a style for glass 2 itself. I didn't realize that. But then again, it doesn't need one. So let's just add, yeah, because I would have done glass 3 using the properties from glass 2. And I'm going to put backdrop filter blur here. Alright, let's turn this down quite a bit. And I'm also going to have a filter on it, so filter blur. In fact, no. Let me leave the. You know what I'm gonna do to make this even easier to see and actually more effective in what I want to achieve. Let's actually give glass 3 its one backdrop filter, and then add the filter to the child element, the pseudo element. So backdrop filter blur on the parent and filter blur on the pseudo element. Good, that should do the trick. So now the parent is blurring the pseudo element, and we can animate that just like we did with glass 2. I'm giving it a different color so it will be more visible this time, and I'm going to change the inset as well to something a little less dramatic. So you can see how this one works. It's similar to this, but it gives you a better effect because now we're actually combining backdrop filter blur and the filter of the pseudo element behind it. Now we can turn this up quite a bit. So I'm going to go with something like 135 pixels, which is really wide. And you're going to notice that this probably goes outside the parent, and it's also not visible anymore. Let me turn that down so it's... I still want it to be visible, but I still want you to see that it goes outside the parent. Yeah. Alright, if you look over here, you should see it actually affected the other element a bit. Let me turn up this color so it's really visible. Yeah, there we go. So you can see it goes outside the parent. Well, the way you can get around that is by turning off overflow on the parent. Problem is though, this can have challenges if you're trying to build something that's responsive or whatever. So you may need to do some nesting here, put something inside of your glass that can scroll. And if you don't want scroll bars, you may need to turn those off and all that. I'm not going to go into all that, but just letting you know it's possible. So overflow hidden on the parent. Now when we do this, everything is contained within the parent. So it still looks nice and we still get that blurred glass effect. Right, so that should show you some of the nice cool ways that you can animate glass. There are even better things we can do with this, like the shadows. So what I'm going to do before I go is show you some nice shadow effects that we can add to the contents in here and make it look even cooler. So I'm going to wrap this inside of a button. I was going to use an H1, but let me use a button instead. And we're going to give our button a glass style of its own. So, whoops, button box shadow 00 8px RGBA 000.5 background color. Let's go with RGBA 255.25 and border 1px solid white. Well, better yet, RGBA white 0.25. Alright. Okay, that didn't work. 255, there we go. I forget that these functions are not always as modern as I want them to be. I forget that just about every day and then try it again. I'm gonna add some padding to this and round the corners. We're going to give it a text color white, text transform, uppercase. I actually want this to look good, which is why I'm spending all this time on this. So letter spacing will be 0.135 EM. Could probably turn that up a bit. Right, there we go. There's a slightly annoying problem with text in HTML and, well, pretty much most web technologies is that when you add padding around it, it doesn't pad on the left in the same way as the right, even if you set it to center itself. So sometimes you have to add some extra padding on the left to make it look properly centered. I find usually about 3 pixels extra is enough to fix it. Right, let me turn up this shadow a bit because you can't really see it very well. I'm going to shift it downward as well. Now that I can see it, it's a little too thick, so I'm going to turn it back on. Let's see. Alright, good. Now we're going to add a hover effect to our button. Let's grab the this is the transition value from up here and drop it in here. Oops. I just typed a bunch of gibberish by accident. That looks really cool animated, by the way. I could save this and reload that all day just to see that. Although you should use like a normalized CSS file to remove that extra animation for actual production stuff. it still looks cool. Alright, so on hover, don't need all these values. What we're going to do is transform, translate y to px, and change the background color RGBA 255, 255, 255.35, and we're gonna change the backdrop filter blur 5px. Alright, so I'm probably going to add more to this, but let's just see what happens with the button. So when we hover the parent, it turns blue, and then we hover the button and it becomes solid. We can make that even cooler. By the way, small tip, which I did not remember to do here. Whenever you're going to animate values, it's usually best to have a default value. It depends on the browser whether or not this really causes a problem, but I typically find with some browsers that if you don't add a default value, when you try to animate, it's not that smooth because the browser basically gets caught off guard. So it's nice to have a default value, even if it's something like 0, and then the browser is able to animate things a little more smoothly. Of course, as I've mentioned before, backdrop filter does not exactly work like it should. Oh, another way you can animate backdrop filter, I'm going to use it this time and I forgot to do that, is you can actually change the opacity of an object, or an element I should say, and it will still work perfectly. Which is actually what I did, that's the method I used in my latest template. So I'm going to demonstrate that pretty much right now. So button after content, nothing of course, inset 5 pixels, background color white, position absolute, and opacity 0.5. In fact, let's take out any spacing on this one because we're going to use backdrop filter blur on this to blur the parent's background. Border radius 8px just like the parent. Z index minus, whoops. Come on. Autocomplete for me, please. Thank you. Z index minus 1. And alright, the backdrop filter is what I want from this, so we're gonna move this down to. Alright, let's move that out there for a second. Move this one into here. In fact, no, I don't need this one, it's the other one I need. Yeah, my brain is all over the place and I was getting confused with my own plans. Alright, so good. So we have it at backdrop filter blur of 5px on the after on the button. Oh, and it's covering the entire div. I forgot to add position relative to the parent. Something's still not right here. Okay, I'm still seeing. I am still seeing. Oh, I added the position to the wrong thing. That was hilarious. Sometimes bugs come from some of the most obvious places, and you totally miss it because you're just going on with your business. Okay, good. So we fixed all that, and now we can turn the opacity to 0 on this. So the parent will have no filtering whatsoever, and we can duplicate this. Okay, what's happening here? Oh, I accidentally hit Control S. Alright, we can add hover to this, and we can take out all of the unnecessary duplicated stuff. And change the opacity when it is hovered. And let's also remember to add transition so that it is done smoothly. Now, when I hover this button, you should see, right, there we go. The backdrop filter is applied, and the browser is no wiser, so it is not janky and ugly. I made that a little more transparent or translucent, so it's not as heavy. Sometimes it's hard to get the exact values to make this look good. Alright, did I add... Alright, let me leave off the enhanced background color on the button itself so we can see this better. That's what I really want. Right, there we go. I'm actually going to make the button almost completely transparent, so it's even more obvious. Good, there we go. And as I said, we can animate this even further, so I'm going to change the inset now on this to something like 15 pixels. And the blur will appear and actually move in. Now if you want to make that look even cooler, you can add a filter to the pseudo element. Now you'll notice I'm putting everything in alphabetical order. It's just a habit I picked up from a linter that I use which recommends to do that. And they had a performance-based issue as to why, but I cannot remember offhand. Alright, so now the pseudo element has a filter on it, and it should actually be blurred even when it is animated. Right there. So now you can see it appear, but it's nice and blurry. And if we want, we can turn up the opacity on it, seeing as it's blurred now. Turn up the opacity so that it is more obvious. Great. So that gives us a nice glass effect. Now I'm going to change the background color because I'm pedantic like that. Alright, that wasn't as clean as I wanted. Still not as clean there, but in any case, my point of showing you all that is you can really, you know, go all out with animations, with glass, and get some really cool effects if you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, just play around. Trial and error always works. Alright, I forgot filter blur is not always as cleanly animated, so we're going to take that back out. Let me leave the background color as it was originally too, because I was getting a better effect in any case. I'm going to turn up the blurring from here and turn off overflow on the parent. Right. Still getting a little glitch here, and I'm not sure if that's a Chrome issue or not, because it shouldn't be solid there, but for some reason it is. That's browsers for you sometimes. Because as you can see, it's animating nice and clean and then glitching. But I guess that's a good reminder to all of us, always test your code and see which animations work smoothly, because that one in theory should work smoothly, and it was working smoothly, and then at random sometimes you get that issue, so you know. one of those little things we have to live with in CSS land. Yeah, it's not remaining smooth now anymore, and I don't know why that is. So I guess we'll just take the knowledge and run with it, but oh well. Okay, it's not too bad here. I guess it's me turning up the blurring just now. For some reason it didn't like that. I don't know if it's a caching issue or whatever. Could be. Obviously the last thing you can add is text shadow as well, which I'm not going to demonstrate now because that's basically the same thing as box shadow. But you can add a text shadow to this and animate that. And that would be pretty cool too. There's another option which I'm not going to cover today, but probably in a future stream, which is that we can add gradients to text. That is another kettle of fish on all its own, but it's pretty fun. I've been playing with it. Did a conic gradient last night and had text with 2 different colors, and I'm thinking up some experiments I want to try to actually animate text with gradients on it and shift things around. Maybe see if I can use pseudo elements as well, and come up with a way to do some sparkly text or something. So look out for that in the near future. I'm going to be bringing even more CSS fun and experiments and stuff that you can play with. But I hope you learned something today and that you found this useful. If you didn't, you can always find me on Twitter and holler at me. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I hope you found this useful. Make sure you tune in next week. I'll be back again with some more CSS stuff, God willing, and also some graphics, because I would like to start on another day, but graphic streams will be during the afternoon time or night, depending on the day. So look out for those. They will, at least to start, will be a little shaky in timing, but at least we'll be definitely sure on the day. The day I've chosen to do my graphic streams will be on Tuesdays and possibly Wednesdays, depending on the week, how the week goes. But usually on Tuesdays, that's when you can look out for my graphic streams, and CSS I will keep to Thursdays. Alright, so yeah, as I said, I hope you all enjoyed that. Hope you learned something, of course, and you found this informative. So yeah, check out my YouTube channel. Let me just pull that up if I can. Right, check out my YouTube channel. Check out my Twitter, my Twitch, everything. I'm on almost every platform there is. Just look for RolandXR, or you can head over to my website, rolandxr.pro, for my streaming information, rolandxr.pro/streaming. You can find free downloads, and you can also find my stores. I have some pretty cool stuff on my stores, and thanks to anyone who has purchased stuff recently. I really appreciate it. I have some other content to come to my stores soon too, so you can look out for that. And of course, look out for my templates to drop. I am going to be releasing one of them actually sometime within this month. Well, maybe 2. We'll see how that goes, depending on time. Time sometimes gets away from me, and I don't get to do things in the time that I intend. But yes, I am planning to do some theme or template, I should say, releases this week, so you can look out for those. I would like to show you one of them quickly. But it seems like okay, yeah, I know what I have to do here. Seems like OBS Studio wasn't actually showing it, but I know what to do, so yeah. Alright, let me show you this quickly. This is aesthetic. This is the one I'm going to be releasing next. It's pretty much feature complete, being bug tested, and beaten with many stripes to get out all the bugs. So this one's pretty much complete. Just a matter of getting the docs together and getting it out there. You would have seen this on Twitter already, for those who follow me on Twitter, but for everyone else, here it is. And this is the first time that you're getting to see it animated. Took a long time to get these animations to work as they should, but they're really cool, so make sure that when this comes out, you go grab it and make this your homepage. It's a landing page template, and I think it's really cool. I'm almost disappointed that I didn't make this my website landing page because hey, it looks cool. But yeah, you can go check this out, and yeah, make sure you purchase it when it comes out. Oh, and by the way, fun fact, none of these people are real. So yeah, yeah, but that's about it. See y'all next week, and yeah, have a good time.